Welcome to our As the Leader Grows podcast. I've got my good friend, Coach Tori Gordon, all the way from Atlanta, Georgia. She is the founder of Coachable, the creator of the Revive Breathwork. Gosh, she's got over 770,000 followers on TikTok. She is the TikTok queen. Tori, what's up, girl?
What's going on? Happy to be here.
Hey, take just a minute. Tell everybody a little bit about what you've got going on, where you're at, what's going on in the life and times of Tori Gordon right now.
Yeah, man. So much always. I mean, going into almost year two of being an entrepreneur and business ownership, it's always lots going on. For those that don't know me, I am a trauma-informed high-performance coach. And really what I focus on with my clients and community is holistic health and well-being. And I really am all about serving people at a really high level to optimize their relationships, their finances, their careers, and build a life they love. And that's what I'm really dedicated to through the lens of a trauma-informed approach, because I think it's really important to, as we scale businesses and go for our big goals and achieve a lot of things, that we do so with balance and not burnout. And that's kind of what I do in a variety of different ways through my podcast and programs and a lot of other things.
She operates on rocket fuel, guys. I don't get around too many people that have more energy or as much energy as I do, but this chick does. The only downside to you, I think, is you went to Alabama. I think other than that, you're pretty on fire right now.
Roll Tide.
Yeah. I think we'll edit that out. We'll get my guys to edit that out. One of the things you talked about trauma-informed, holistic life. Yeah. And I know one of the things when we connected in Atlanta and you kind of shared your story with me was, in order for you to be able to teach on trauma, it has to be something that you personally went through to be able to do that at the level that you do it. Walk us through kind of what was the birth or the catalyst of you wanting to coach on something this specific as trauma?
Yeah. So my story goes a little something like this. I was a girl that learned really early in life that I got a lot of praise and love and validation when I did well at things. So I learned to excel and perform at high levels in school and sports and extracurriculars. And that felt really good. And it also became a way that I not only sought love and an acceptance, but I distracted myself from the painful things that I'd been through. When I was 18, a senior in high school, my sister was diagnosed with acute myeloid leukemia, which is a rare blood cancer. And over the course of a few years, not only did she lose her life to cancer, but so did my mom of stage 4 ovarian cancer, as well as four other very close relatives, and lived through a massive F4 tornado that ripped all of Tuscaloosa when I was still living there at the time. And so consecutively, year after year, it seemed like I was kind of just in this survival mode of running on adrenaline and getting things done, and all the while working and excelling in school and ultimately in corporate. And so on the outside, it looked like things were going as well as they could. And I kept hearing things like, oh my gosh, you're so strong. How do you get through this? I would not be able to get out of bed. And when you hear that, you start to, I knew I wasn't that strong, but I had learned to adopt a persona of strength that I didn't feel like I could be honest about and put down this mask and say, actually, I'm not okay. I didn't know how to ask for help, because when I was a really young girl and I was the pitcher on a softball field, I started to correlate leadership with control. I started to learn that I had to be in control of as much as I could. And these outside factors that were beyond my control made me feel really uncomfortable and afraid and scared. And so learned how to control the things that did have an impact over, such as my career and work and how much I did. And so that's ultimately kind of what birthed it. When I lost my mom in a relationship, I realized, first of all, I can't keep running from this thing I'm trying to avoid, my grief, which I had not processed. And I can't outrun or outwork my unprocessed trauma, which on some level we all have. And so I had to face myself first.
Why do you think, is it just the pain that people have to walk through, Tori, in order to deal with that and process that grief? Because grief is normal. Do you think it's just the pain level? Do you think they don't know how? Why would you, what would you say are some of the main things that some of the people that you coach and come to you in what you do in trauma informed coaching, like what would you say are some of the main things that they get out of that?
Yeah. I mean, one, like I was one of these. I suppressed emotion in a lot of ways. And all do, because we are conditioned to avoid pain. Our brain is designed to keep us alive. Pain feels like a threat to our survival. And so it's not in our nature to lean into discomfort or into pain, especially emotional or psychological pain of any kind. So we avoid that at all costs in a lot of different ways. We might numb out, we might distract, we might even take on something I call spiritual bypassing, where everything happens for a reason and it's all going to be okay, or you're just in like toxic positivity. And that survival instinct is really deeply conditioned for a lot of us. And for me, I was praised for it. I got a lot of praise for being strong. And so there wasn't to be honest about my experience was threatening to who I like, the identity I had created for myself. And uncertainty is really scary for most of us. Uncertainty is not a playground where we feel like we are in control, and that feels like a threat to our nervous system and our survival ultimately, until we learn how to build a new relationship with stepping into the unknown and allowing ourselves to be vulnerable, which is very, very confronting for those who have fear of loss or abandonment or rejection or anything like that. It feels counterintuitive to open my heart when I might just get hurt again. So it's really about creating a safe space for people to do that work and to process and to create what we call disconfirming experiences, where I can share, I can be honest, or I can express without something bad happening to me.
Do you think a lot of people think that if Tori knew what I was thinking or knew what was on the inside, she wouldn't love me? Or if my husband knew this, they wouldn't care for me? Or if my friends knew what I think, or if my friends knew I wasn't as strong as they think I am, they wouldn't think about me the way that they do? Do you think that fear kind of is something that kicks in people and keeps them from actually getting healthy?
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's this, our identity has gotten wrapped up in the need to be a certain way that we think other people expect us to be. And if we aren't, or we flip the script, we're afraid of that rejection. That you love me because I am this way. And if you only knew what was really going on, you wouldn't love me. And so that fear of the rejection or the abandonment or what would happen if keeps us in isolation and keeps us silent. And that's the sneakiness of shame and fear like that. Shame wants to be hidden. It wants to stay in secrecy. And ultimately I got to a point where I just couldn't live like that anymore. I just felt like I was living two different lives.
Do you remember the moment to where, because shame, I tell people this all the time, like shame just doesn't hide. Like you said, it hides, kind of wants to be in the dark. The longer you keep it in the dark, it grows. It actually becomes harder and harder and harder to really look at that shame and go, that is, number one, that shame is not me or nor my identity.
Yeah.
It's something in us that keeps us from really finding who we are. Do you remember kind of what that moment was for you? I know you lost your sister, then you lost your mom, you lost family members. Do you remember the moment where you just said, you know what? I'm not doing this anymore.
Yeah.
I have got to find who I am, and I've got to start this journey towards becoming healthy.
Yeah, it was actually none of those things I listed, which were a lot of big losses in my life. It was actually the dissolving of a relationship that happened shortly after my mom passed. And I started to notice a common through line in a lot of the relationships I had been in during this period of time. I was a girl that was always in like a year and a little bit, a relationship that was like a year long. And had several of them, and they always ended similarly. And so I started to see a pattern. I was the common denominator in that.
Mm-hmm.
And I recognized that I had sought codependent relationships as a way to create stability and consistency in my life when everything else felt incongruent or out of control. And I noticed this was such a disruption in what I thought was going to be my life. And after that breakup, I didn't know who I was outside of that relationship. And I realized I didn't know what kind of food I would want to go
So
get,
good.
what kind of music I would listen to, where I would hang out on the weekend, because I had become so entangled in the relationship. I didn't know who I was independent of it. And so I had to start really looking at, who am I without my labels? Who am I without my titles of, managing vice president, of girlfriend, of daughter, of all the things that we have that we identify with? Who am I if you took all of those things away from me? And I didn't know. And that was the question that set me on this path of self-discovery and healing, ultimately, to figure out the answer to that. Like, who am I and why am I here?
Tell me about that process in the early days. Tell me
Yeah.
about that process, the difficulty, dude, it had to be just like,
Yeah.
I mean, it's gut wrenching.
It was, because I was stripped of everything familiar outside of this job that I had. And ultimately I ended up leaving that as well. But at the beginning, it was a lot of getting back to the fundamentals and the basics. I remember there was a time where I was just told myself, just do the next right thing. And that might look like wake up and just make my bed. Like, that might be the next right thing. Maybe the next right thing was having a glass of water or taking a shower or washing my face that day. And that, for a while, was how I operated. What was just the next right thing that felt like it would nourish me and that it would fill me up. And I tried a bunch of new things. Like, I took salsa lessons by myself just to see, like, would I like it, would I not? Because I think clarity comes from taking action. And I would have some information about, oh, that was fun or that wasn't. That's not for me, because I was kind of trying to figure out, who am I again? Like, what do I enjoy again? And being able to willingly put myself in those new environments and around new people helped to remind me that I do, and have my own set of interests, and I am, really what I am interested in health, and I am interested in moving my body and nature and all these things that I had gotten so disconnected from, which made me feel like I was getting to know myself again. So I sort of went through this whole dating process with myself for a while, especially at the beginning.
I love that. How long did that process take for you, Tori, or how far in that process was it for you when you realized, okay, I'm kind of onto something here, and I've got a passion to help people that have experienced the same kind of pain and trauma. And man, now it's not just me that I'm fighting for, but I'm fighting for all the people that are going to come down the road that I get to help.
Yep. So there was a period of time when, after this relationship, I started to go to therapy. And that had always felt like a daunting process for me. And I had avoided it because I was like, I've got this mountain of things I have not looked at. And that seems like it's going to take a really long time to start to unpack all of that. So I started to go to therapy, but then I started to listen to a podcast, actually, of a woman who's an incredible coach, and just was absorbing everything I could. I was just soaking it all up, and everything felt like it was applicable to me. And he offered a retreat in Maui, which was something I decided to do on my own. For the first time, I traveled alone, and I put myself in this very immersive, experiential place to do some deep work on myself. And that was the turning point for me, of knowing that I was onto something. I knew the day I registered for that retreat, my life was going to change. And I cried on the
Mm.
phone because I knew I was stepping over a threshold, like over a line into something that I didn't know yet what was going to unfold, but I had the expectation I'm going to be different. I'm going to be different after this. And I'm going to find the support. I'm going to get the support that I need. And I'm going to go to a place where I can just be myself. No one has preconceived ideas of me. And that was so healing. And 2 weeks later, when I got back from that trip, I knew then I was like, I have to create experiences where people can have what I just went through. That it was so freeing and so liberating. I was like, this is what I'm meant to do with the rest of my life. And it went from an this is about me, to us, to all ultimately. And then I started to think about how can I just share my story. I wasn't a certified coach or anything like that, very much on my journey, which I still am. But I committed then to sharing my story and giving people permission to relate and to, if they felt compelled to share. And so I started my first podcast at that point, really just as a place to share what I was learning. And organically, it kind of grew to having so many people reaching out and saying, "Oh, thank you for sharing that. I'm experiencing something different." And then decided to leave the corporate world and completely commit, and then went through a lot of mentorship and training and continued education to get to where I am today.
I love that, girl. I want to shift gears just a little bit. We talked about, kind of what you do, what led you to do what you're doing. A lot of people may see you and go, "Oh, I know her from TikTok." Like you're like a TikTok superstar. like how did that happen? Like walk me through that journey.
It's funny, I think when you get in alignment with your soul's like mission and purpose, things start to fall into place in ways that you could not have predicted or planned for. And this is one of those stories. I had been, like many people, trying to build an online coaching business on Instagram, and TikTok reached out to me, have no idea how they found me. And they said, "Hey, we're starting," it was in the middle of the pandemic, in June of the pandemic. And they said, "We're wanting to bring some creators on to TikTok to create educational content," because TikTok was known as a dance platform, lots of young kids. And they were trying to shift that because everybody was at home for the first time. And they were trying to educate people through this app. And so I started, in a small little program, creating content really around motivation and life advice. But ultimately, I showed up on TikTok in a way that I didn't show up on Instagram, which was totally candid, unfiltered, raw. I would just be like out on my walk, no makeup. I was not really thinking about how I was delivering it. I was just sharing it really authentic, and also myself permission to do that because I knew no one on the app at the time. I was like, I have no idea. None of my friends are on this app. I'm just going to talk. And it blew up. And I remember it was probably like my 7th or 8th post. I woke up one day and it had 20,000 views or something. And I was, wait, what? And over the course of, I think, 1 month, I was at 100,000, and it just continued to grow. And it was really accidental. It was not planned, but it's been a huge blessing. And I've gotten to do so much really amazing work with that platform and brands as a result. So it's been an honor.
Aren't those the coolest things though, when they just happen and it really is organic, and you're like, it's almost effortless. It's almost like there's an ease behind the whole thing. And then boom, there it is. What would you say, Tori, to people out there who are listening or watching today, who've went through some trauma in the past and they really haven't learned how to turn their pain into purpose? What would you say to them today?
No matter what you do, you can't outrun it. You can't outwork it. It will catch up to you. And it starts with permission, giving yourself permission to maybe step back, to ask for help, to get into an environment where it feels okay to actually face that stuff. Because anything that we avoid, like avoiding hard things, makes life unavoidably harder. And so if you don't want to continue to recycle the painful emotions, the anxiety, the stress, the overwhelm, whatever you're experiencing in your life, those things are a byproduct of unresolved wounds. If you find yourself triggered. And so give yourself permission to be a beginner, because you're going to feel like a beginner when you're just starting to learn how to take care of yourself, how to honor your feelings, how to give yourself what you need, when a lot of us have been taking care of everybody else in our lives and we have neglected our own need and care. And so you're going to fumble through it and you're not going to get it right all the time. And my biggest piece of advice is give yourself a lot of grace, because and compassion. Compassion means with passion, coming from the passion of the Christ, suffering, to be with our suffering. So if we really want to be compassionate people, if we want to be compassionate with our friends, with our kids, with our coworkers and what they're going through, we have to be compassionate with ourselves, which means to sit with our own suffering, to let it be there, to not resist it, to not reject it, to not make it wrong, but to allow it to be there. And because when we can go into it and be with it, that's where it starts to heal, to release, because it just needs to be witnessed and allowed instead of resisted.
Yeah. That's one of those things I suck at sometimes, because I'm so goal oriented and so type A, high D, high I. Let's go charge the mountain.
Yeah.
Let's do it with a group of people. Let's go have fun. And God, it's so hard sometimes to just sit and go, ugh.
Yep. It is. It's not comfortable. But I've realized there's this quote about, it's hard to be rich. It's hard to be poor. It's hard to be fat. It's hard to be
Which
fit.
one do you want? That's
Which
exactly
hard?
right.
Choose your heart.
Yeah.
Because there's the discomfort of change and there's the discomfort of staying the same. And you get to decide, and no one gets to make that choice but you. And so you're empowered to do that. And I encourage you, it's so worth it if you let yourself go there.
I absolutely love that. Your faith, you mentioned that earlier. It's so funny when we talked. It's like we started having a conversation, and it's like, oh, we know this guy together. No, we know this guy. No, we're connected at the same church. And it was so crazy how many people that we knew. Talk about your faith and how it's so funny, because when I was out of the last 25 years, half of that full-time vocational ministry, planted a church, pastored a church, through Highlands, through ARC. And I always thought that, I knew that's what God had for me in that season of my life. And people ask me, they go, Ken, do you miss full-time ministry? I always say, man, listen, I get to minister to people now that would never, ever, ever step foot in my church. I mean, I've spoken at 10X headquarters for Grant twice. Grant's never coming to my place. All the people that I get an audience now, they're never coming on a Sunday morning to come hear me in whatever series we're doing. Talk about your faith and how important that's been for you through this, and how that really, how you exercise that in what you're doing for people right now.
Yeah. My faith has been incredibly tested through a lot of the things I've experienced, caused me to ask really big questions, and allow myself to sit with the answers or the lack thereof at times. But ultimately, sort of like you can, I thought I was going to go into ministry when I was in college. And I feel like I do more, I administer now in a different way. And ultimately, I'm able to work with people in sometimes they're most desperate hour, when they're really at a point where they're like, I have to have something different. I can't keep on like this. And there's an opportunity at that point to speak right into someone's heart and speak to the essence of somebody. There's the soul, the spirit of somebody, not the ego, not the pain, not the stories that they've developed. But I get to be a mirror to them of who they really are outside of all of that. And that's so profound. And it's an honor to be able to walk with people through those experiences, because as a breathwork facilitator, I help people to come back home to their body to their truth ultimately. And for some people, discover what it means to love themselves and for the first time. And it's a powerful thing to witness. But the word breath comes from the Latin word spiritus, which is from the Holy Spirit, spiritus, which comes from pneuma, and pneuma meaning breath of life. And so I really believe that our breath is a portal. It's a bridge to our spirit, to the unseen, whether that's the unseen trauma or the unseen soul, somebody that is really trying to awaken and come forward. And I get to speak into those people's lives. And I don't take that lightly at all.
I love
take
that.
that, very, very seriously.
I love that. Scripture says the power of life and death are in the tongue, and it is pneumas in the is the Greek in the New Testament, and the Hebrew in the Old Testament is ruach, which is the breath of God. When God spoke and the world was created. You said something just a minute ago about really kind of empathy and grace, and I had a conversation with a friend this morning, and you said they learn to love themselves. Like, if we don't love ourselves, it's very hard for us to give ourselves or extend, number one, our own selves empathy and grace. And if we can't extend empathy and grace to our own selves, it's almost impossible for us to extend it to other people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tell us how you help people view themselves maybe in a different light and really fall in love with who they are, who God created them to be, so they can be empathetic, compassionate, and really have grace on themselves first.
Yeah. We can't give what we haven't received. And what we withhold from ourselves, we withhold from other people, whether we know it or not. So if we withhold compassion and grace, acceptance, non-judgment from ourselves, but we think we can give it away, we can't. You can't. And if you're struggling with self-love or self-acceptance, here's the thing, it's not your fault, right? Like, you likely didn't have an example of this, and we can't expect our kids to love themselves if we don't love ourselves. We are the example. Like, our children will fail at doing what we say, they will always succeed at becoming who we are. So if that's not motivation to focus on your own internal self-image and self-esteem, and likely if you're struggling with that, it is a byproduct of trauma, unresolved trauma. And because we're not born judging ourselves, we're not born judging other people, we're not born thinking we're not enough or that we lacking confidence. That is learned. So it's remembering, after we how I help people is when we take away all the stories that we've developed over our life, that, oh, I'm not good because things happened to me. People don't love me unless I'm this way because this thing happened to me. When you strip all that away and you see that it's a story that we've created at different times in our developmental life, and that those beliefs are what's driving the results in the way we view ourselves and the way we view other people, then we can get back to the truth of things. Just because it feels true doesn't mean it is true. So I help people remember by taking away everything that's in the way of seeing who they really are, not seeing a like reflection that's actually not theirs. They're seeing a byproduct of a lot of belief systems that are based in fear and limitation that aren't them. And when we can work with that, they can see themselves more clearly.
Yeah, I love it, because I say this, and you said this just a second ago. I tell people all the time, when we work with limited beliefs like fear, insecurity, scarcity, comparison, shame, success, the 6 ones that we really teach on it at GSD, all of those things are learned. And if they're learned, they can be unlearned. It just takes time and a process and a commitment from you to be able to walk down that road and take that journey, which really does, it affects you and it affects everybody in your relational circles. And it can be super powerful when people get to do that. Yeah. Girl, I appreciate you. Tell everybody, what's the best way for them, Tori, to get connected with you?
Yeah, best way to get connected with me is through my website, torigordon.com. Everything you want to know is probably there. Otherwise, you can follow me on media, on TikTok or Instagram. I'm Coach Tori Gordon, both places. So to connect with you.
Roll Tide.
Roll Tide.
I don't know that I've ever said that in my life.
Yes.
Hey, girl, thank you so much. I'm looking forward. I'm going to be on your podcast on Monday.
Yes.
Man, super looking forward to being with you on Monday. And we've got an event coming in Atlanta, January 27th to 28th. It's going to be phenomenal. We're working on that. It's going to be big time. Yeah, we're doing it at the Phase Center in Alpharetta. An unbelievable event space. We're actually going to do ours in a round. Tables of 10, I think about 250 to 300. It's an unbelievable place to be able to do. We've got some big names coming up for that, and Tori Gordon's name might be in there.
I'll be there.
Yeah, I know you will be. So anyway, so looking forward to connecting with you on Monday, and
sure.
Man, super excited about what you're doing. I love your heart. I love your passion to be able to help people. And the one thing I love about you is there is such a high level of authenticity. And I tell people all the time, you can't fake authenticity. Like when you're authentic and you lean into with a genuineness to people, and you really have a heart to help them, it opens up, it helps them open up so much to you to be able to walk them through. And as Donald Miller says in Story Brand, be that guide to walk them through and really find that healing from trauma. So girl, I'm proud of you. Super proud of you. Super proud of you. Yeah, hold Atlanta down for me over there. I know you are.
I will.
I know you are. Yeah, and we will see you on Monday.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me.
I appreciate you. Hey guys, thank you for joining us today on the As a Leader Grows podcast with my good friend, Coach Tori Gordon. And she shared all of her Instagram, TikTok at Coach Tori Gordon. That's TORIGORDON. You can catch her all over social media, guys. Go check her out. She's got some phenomenal resources and helping a ton of people walk through and find not only just healing, but find their love for who they are and their message in life through being healed from trauma. Girl, I love you. I appreciate you.
Thank you. Love you.